From the heartland of America and the gateway to the West, good morning, good evening, wherever you may be across the nation, around the world. I'm George Norrie. Welcome to Coast AM, emerging artist bumper music for the first couple hours tonight. And later tonight, the Shroud of Turin. Hope you had a great weekend. Here's what's happening. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi led a congressional delegation to meet with the Ukrainian President Zelensky in Ukraine. Pelosi is now the highest-ranking U.S. official to visit Ukraine during the war, with the surprise visit adding to the growing momentum behind the West's support for the country's fight against Russia. The trip comes as Moscow's refocused military campaign in Ukraine struggles to make significant gains. Reportedly, Vladimir Putin is set to undergo an operation for cancer and will hand over power to his hardline spy chief, according to a Kremlin insider. I don't know how accurate this story is, but it's a strange one. The Russian tyrant's death and health has been the source of considerable speculation amid reports that he is battling both abdominal cancer and Parkinson's disease. We'll keep our eye on that story. A gallon of gas costs about double what it cost in January of 2021. Home prices were up a whopping 19.8% year over year. And in March, groceries cost 10% more than they did a year earlier. But some analysts think that the burden could soon ease and that we've reached an inflationary top. This week, the Federal Reserve will meet and will likely announce plans to raise interest rates, a tool used to combat rampant inflation. However, investors fear that accelerating the pace of interest rate hikes could drag the economy deeper into a recession. Here's investment advisor Mish Shedlock with us. Mish, do you agree with that?
There's a little bit of truth to some of that. Let's put it that way. Home prices are certainly up 19.8%. You've heard me talk about that on many Wednesdays. But the BLS, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, tells us that rent is only up 4.17% year over year. What? That's crazy. The rental prices are soaring. I have 2-year changes here, not one, but Miami's up 58%, Tampa 45%, New Orleans 33%, Phoenix 29%. Those are at least believable numbers, 15% a year or even 10% a year if those are on the high. But 4% from the BLS, I don't buy it. Now, the Fed's going to be hiking rates a half a point on Wednesday. And what's going to be really interesting then is actually what they say on the forward guidance. Every eye is going to be on that forward guidance. But I'm expecting a half a point in May and another half a point in June. Then we see. But GDP came out on Thursday, and we talked about that last Wednesday evening. And GDP declined 1.4% in the first quarter. I did a post. I said sounding recession bells, but, anyone who's been following me on Wednesdays have been warning about recession, have been warning that these GDP estimates were too high, and here we are, and the Fed is hiking. We're at 0.25% right now, heading into a recession with the Fed hiking. And what's that going to do if they hike? I don't believe they're going to get to where everyone else thinks they are, which is like 3% by the end of the year. We'll be in a massive, massive recession if they get there. But if the Fed's hiking, that's going to slow home building. And what is that going to do for the people who are renting? One more final thing, if I can get an additional thought.
Sure.
Warren Buffett, Berkshire Hathaway, had their annual meeting last week, and Warren Buffett called it a gambling parlor. It certainly has been, and his partner, Charlie Munger, called it a speculative mania. It's exactly what I've been talking about here. The Fed desperately needs to cool that mania. But, when it does cool that mania, it's going to cause other problems elsewhere. It's not a pretty setup, George.
Mitch, we'll talk to you Wednesday after the Fed possibly increases interest rates that day. Just one day before she was to be inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame, Naomi Judd has died at the age of 76, sadly, by suicide. A man and woman electrocuted themselves to death while attempting to recreate a viral TikTok trend. Be careful here. Wisconsin police said they responded to a residential fire in Marathon County in early April and ultimately discovered two individuals dead at the scene by electrocution. The pair were reportedly attempting to recreate the fractal burning trend from TikTok. Fractal burning is a process professionals use to burn tree-like designs into wood, often used as ornaments or tables. My gosh. Salmonella is a dangerous bacteria that can cause life-threatening illnesses in some people. The microorganism can be found in all sorts of food products, including snacks. It was just a few weeks ago that Ferrero issued a massive recall of Kinder-branded Easter-themed chocolates due to salmonella contamination. And now it's time to take note of an even bigger candy recall from Strauss Israel Elite that has triggered some. The recall involves 101 different candy brands that Strauss sold in the U.S. and retail stores and online. Our food safety coach, Jeff Nelkin, with us. Candy? We can't even trust candy anymore, Jeff.
George, I think it's not so much about trusting the candy, but there were some studies that were done where these candies were being produced, and they found some problems, salmonella in the production line, salmonella in some of the liquid chocolate ingredients that were used in making these products. So there's further investigation. They closed down, the production area, and also they've identified they had some staffing issues, when it came to quality assurance, and they didn't fill those positions quite as well as they should have. So they're reviewing their entire, process of how they're making products.
Jeff, are you happy with the way the food coaching industry is going these days in terms of helping people understanding just the dangers that's out there?
Well, we're certainly, reaching and researching how to do a better job in reaching the public and communicating with the public. I just wanted to share, if anybody has any of these candy products and they have any questions, can I give you a number?
Yes, sir, please.
Okay, it's Unilever Consumer Sharing Center, and their number is 1-800-780-780. If you have the product and you're not sure if this is part of the 101 on the recall list, and if you have any symptoms, you should certainly talk to your family physician and let them know, your situation.
Thank you, Jeff. Jeff's website, foodsafetycoach.com. Moderna has set a timeline to deliver a variant-specific COVID-19 vaccine booster just days after asking the Food and Drug Administration for authorization to use its vaccine for children. In a moment, the Hammer of Mysticism will talk about out-of-body experiences. Marilynn Hughes next on Coast to Coast AM. And welcome back to Coast. George Norrie with you. Our special guest tonight for the first couple hours, Marilynn Hughes, back with us. A couple of her books include The Hammer of Mysticism and Out-of-Body Experiences. Marilynn has had a long-standing career in broadcasting as a news anchor, reporter, producer. She founded the Out-of-Body Travel Foundation in 2003 and has experienced, researched, written, and taught about out-of-body travel since 1987. Marilynn has been the object of a scientific study on out-of-body experiences and a subject in several other research studies. Welcome back, Marilynn. I hope you are well.
I'm doing great. How are you, George?
Great, super. What markets were you in as an anchor person?
Oh, it was Cincinnati and Dayton, Ohio.
Both great markets. Ohio's a great state, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, I loved it there.
Are you a Ohio State fan?
I was at the time, but then I moved to Colorado for 25 years or so and, of course, became a Denver Broncos fan for many years.
I'm an old Michigan Wolverine fan when it comes to college stuff.
Still were you? Okay.
Born in Detroit, Marilynn. So tell me, how did a news anchor person get interested in out-of-body experiences?
Well, it just kind of happened where I just started having the experiences, and so it just I kind of followed the flow of where it led me, and ironically, in the journalistic kind of way, just kind of wanted to discover and find out what was happening to me. So I started following the leads as they came along. And so I was writing down what was happening to me, and so that was, decades ago. And I wrote many books, 104 books, ago, and have been really studying and following and experiencing the out-of-body travel phenomena for many years, and learning quite a bit about it, and the purpose behind it, and where it leads, where it takes us as souls, in our universal adventure here on Earth.
And you're about to release a film called The Tao of Mysticism, aren't you?
Actually, yes, we did do that, and that one has been doing very well, and it followed a film that we did called How to Have an Out-of-Body Experience. So, the Tao of Mysticism takes it even deeper. So you can start with How to Have an Out-of-Body Experience and then follow it up with the Tao of Mysticism, which goes deeper into the experience. It'll really show people how to start, the process of how do we begin to, learn how to have the experiences and go into this process. So, yes, those are all available at the YouTube channel and the other channels that we have, which you can find by going to the website at outofbodytravel.org. So, yes, those are all available.
I had my first out-of-body experience, and probably my only one I can remember, when I was 11 years old. I was bouncing against the ceiling, looking down at my body, and then it just kind of rammed me right back in. But I was obsessed after that, went to the library and found the paranormal occult section, and sure enough, found some books with out-of-body experiences. Tell us, Marilynn, in your words, what is an out-of-body experience?
Well, an out-of-body experience is when our spirit soul separates from the physical body and then travels. Sometimes an experience like what you had, which is kind of the very beginning experiences that we can have, but it actually can go so much further, because we begin by having those experiences that are physical realm oriented in the room, traveling through the windows, around the neighborhoods, things like that. But they progress very quickly into, going beyond the astral plane and through the corridors into multidimensional realities and into higher and lower spheres of existence. And then the soul begins to be educated into mystical wisdom and knowledge and the purpose behind their incarnation here on Earth. It gets extremely vast and very complex, but yet at the same time, the complexity is not such that a soul and a person cannot follow it, and it's not overwhelming or something that cannot be followed.
Mm-hmm.
It's very much something that is given in a manner that is easily processed. It's given in a way that souls can progress along a line of instruction that is given.
You think, Marilynn, without out-of-body experiences, the soul would lose something?
Well, definitely, definitely out-of-body experiences do add something. I don't want people thinking if they're not having the experiences that they're, like losing out, because, a lot of people don't have them. But they definitely do add something. I definitely say that out-of-body travel does create an acceleration in the spiritual journey, because what happens is you're bringing in this acceleration because energy is brought in that accelerates the potential changes that can occur in the spiritual progress of a soul. So so for instance, we can literally, each one of us can spend decades trying to figure out, what we need to be doing next, or what we don't understand, or what we don't see.
Right.
When we have the out-of-body experience, we can literally be taken into the energy of exactly what it is that we're missing. We can be taken into the past lifetime that holds the key to the wisdom that we need to understand. We are taken through initiations into the mysteries, into amazing vistas of knowledge. Because people think of out-of-body experiences in terms of much more grounded realities than what is actually possible, even in terms of just thinking in terms of getting out of their body. The astral plane experiences oftentimes the experience trying to navigate around the room and things like this, and they don't realize that is literally not even the tip of the iceberg. That is just literally mechanics.
What got you so fascinated about all of this?
Well, it's almost like I was dragged into it,
Pulling and screaming, right?
Yeah. Well, I was very fascinated by it. So I don't know if I would say kicking and screaming, but it was something I would, in certain cases you can say it was almost like destiny, because it was definitely something I was called to do. But it was something that was happening to me in a progression, and I was being shown things things were being opened up to me in a progressive way, and it was just so fascinating and so exciting as everything was being followed by something even more awesome, exciting, eye-opening, beautiful, awesome. You would start with, these basic mechanics. You start with that. You learn about some basic things about the spiritual body, but then you're moving into learning things about the different realms, the different spheres of existence. Then you start learning about the different spiritual teachers, the different types of beings who are going to teach you. Then you're going to all these different multiverse, these different various realms of existence that are so different and so beautiful and so varied in their manner of experience that you can't really quantify it. So, like, for instance, in one experience, you're visiting cities of light in the higher spheres. In another experience, you might be visiting ancient worlds or ancient pyramids, or going into the inner recesses of the Sphinx. You might be going into mystery initiation.
There's no limit, is there?
There's no limit. You're going into the galactic heavens. You're learning about the heavens and the extraterrestrials and all the different angelic orders, all the different orders of the different extraterrestrials, because there's so many different orders of beings that are not of Earth origin. You know what I mean? There is so much, and this is part that I think is so beyond. It's so hard to explain, and that I think is what my books can help do for people. And they are available for people to download free at the website.
Oh, good for you.
Yeah, so people can definitely go take a look and really start getting a sense of this, because this is partly what it helps people to do, is start really opening up to, oh, this is really not just a grounded experience. This is opening yourself up to what is really out there, which is so much more than many of us have allowed ourselves to really be aware of. And even just becoming aware of it, makes us much more open to that reality becoming
sure does
accessible to us as well.
Marilynn, stay with us. We're going to take a quick break and come back and talk more about out-of-body experiences and why it's really so important to also our health. And welcome back to Coast. George Norrie back with Marilynn Hughes as we talk about her work, out-of-body experiences. Where do we get your books, Marilynn, again, off your website?
Off my website, outofbodytravel.org. You can get them in all the different formats, paperback, Audible, ebook,
Perfect.
everything.
Is the astral body the soul?
No, the astral body would be just one of the energy bodies that you have, and there's a lot of different energy bodies that you'll experience in the out-of-body travel experience. Ironically, you will actually learn how to transform and transfer into those different energy bodies as you go through the out-of-body experience. But that happens as a progression, through these experiences. One of the things that's coming out here is the two books, Greater Reality, Volume 2 and 3, that's being put out by the Consciousness and Contact Research Institute, formerly the Dr. Edgar Mitchell Foundation for Research into Extraordinary Experiences. And I wrote a chapter for each of those volumes. One in the theoretical chapters about out-of-body travel and astral travel that will be going into a lot of detail on this. And also in the experiential volume, which is the third, on the progression of out-of-body experiences, which goes into quite a bit of detail on how these out-of-body experiences begin and go into the evolution of the soul. And both of these articles actually detail what the purpose of these experiences really are and where they lead to, because it is so much bigger than most people realize. It's not just a paranormal experience. It's an evolutionary experience that unfolds into really, ironically, the key to the purpose of why we are here, why we incarnate into this earthly incarnation.
Is it like the dying process, Marilynn?
There is a similarity to it. There are differences, and there are differences that are actually pointed out to you as you're progressing through the out-of-body experiences. Like, for instance, there are boundaries that you're not allowed to cross. So, like, for instance, when you are having a near-death experience, sometimes you're allowed to cross beyond when people go into the tunnel and the light. There is a particular veil that if you cross beyond that veil, generally you're not going to be coming back. And it's the same with out-of-body experiences, where you will not be allowed to pass beyond certain points in these experiences unless you're actually going to be crossing over for, permanently in terms of death. And so there are similarities, but there are also differences. And so people who have near-death experiences will find that their experiences are very similar, but there are differences because they are close to death. Some of their experiences will be more pronounced and more profound. However, in the out-of-body experiences that people will have, you're going to find them to be more pronounced in the initiatory sense. And what I mean by that is that out-of-body experiences are going to have more of a progressive initiatory sense to them, in the fact that these actually are kind of there's a real progression to them. This purification journey, I speak about this throughout all my books, is that when it comes down to it, why are we here? We are here to undertake this purification journey. We are in a mortal realm, which means we are in the realms where the soul is ensconced in this realm where we contain both good and evil elements. There are realms above us that are all purely light. There are realms below us that are purely darkness. But we have both good and evil within us. And so we are in this middle zone where we have to undertake purification. That's why we're here. And so this purification journey that we have to undertake is generally the simplified version of why we're here. And in these out-of-body experiences, we are undergoing these episodes where we are learning about past lifetimes. We're learning about patterns of behavior in this lifetime and previous existences that have brought us to this point and what we need to alter. We're learning about things that come from within our own soul, but within the soul of humankind that we need to better understand and then alter in order for us to actually be able to reach towards that point where we can ascend from this level of human evolution to the next step, where we will no longer need to continue this karmic circling, this reincarnational cycle that we are all contained within here.
Are there astral planes or levels, different kinds of levels? I've always heard that.
Oh, yes, there are many, many levels, infinite numbers of levels. In as much as you can think, there are as many levels as we can think. Because as much as we can think, we create. And so, ironically, everything that we think and everything that we think imperfectly, we will create that imperfectly. And so, for instance, in terms of purgatorial spheres, which are places of purification, other realms where souls are undergoing different types of purification, we will find every type of purification going on in relation to every type of way that we can, as human beings, think. And then, of course, we have to go beyond how we as human beings can think, and remember that we're not the only forms of life in the universe. So then we would have to take it to the next level, which is all of that. So everything that we see in terms of how we can all get lost or confused or get caught up in some type of habitual misperceived cycle, that is how many realms can come to be. And that's just in terms of the realms of purification, and that's the mortal spheres that we are ensconced within here in the middle spheres. Now, the really wonderful experiences that I love to talk about, too, are these wonderful light spheres, which there are infinite numbers of these, which is the worlds of light and life beyond us, which are the places that we all are, seeking to attain to. And these are the realms that we all want to become compatible to. And of course, many of us have traveled to. But in order for us to actually become able to reside in those spheres permanently, we have to undergo these purifications to become compatible to them when we die here and be able to ascend to them, and not have to come back here because we have unfinished business. And so this is where we get into, the next part of it, which is, a lot of my work revolves around the ancient sacred texts, which is so important because the ancient sacred texts are filled with those last words that were left behind from the writings of those great masters when they were getting ready to leave this world behind, when they were about to ascend this sphere, because they had figured it out. And they all have these great, wonderful keys and mysteries that they left behind in these ancient sacred texts. And in these beautiful mystical experiences I've had and out-of-body experiences, I've seen it innumerable times, this staircase from earth to heaven that is built of these ancient sacred texts. Every step is one of these ancient sacred texts because each one of them contains one of these keys that leads us from earth to heaven. One of the films that we do have available, and all our films you can watch for free as well.
How many do you have now?
I think we have about 6.
Wow.
Yeah. And this one's called The Staircase from Earth to Heaven, which is about the importance of these beautiful keys that are right there in front of us that many of us miss because we don't realize that the importance of this, that these are so important because they are the wonderful gold that was left behind at the moment a soul was ascending to the next level, and they left those very important last words to us as to how they achieved that. And we don't realize that's why it's so important, because those words could be a key for us. And this beautiful vision that I've had over and over again and seen in these out-of-body experiences, and I cannot overly emphasize the beauty of it, of that staircase, of how we get there ourselves, which is recognizing that staircase and that it's built by these ancient texts, these beautiful little steps, that is these little extant texts that so many of us just don't notice. You know what I mean?
Well, Marilynn, some astral projectors have said, with regards to these levels and planes, that there's some levels you don't want to stop at because they're not very good. Mm-hmm. You agree with that?
There are, and of course, so here we go with the heavens, hells, and purgatories.
That's right.
Because there are heavens, hells, and purgatories, and there are infinite numbers of hells, infinite numbers of purgatories, and infinite numbers of heavens. And absolutely, you have to be discerning, and you have to have guidance and direction. And if you are following this carefully, you will receive this guidance mystically. And my books will give you a lot of direction on this as to how you're going to receive that direction carefully. But yes, you do not want to go everywhere, and you want to be very, very careful. Some of us will be called to go to these places because we are going to be required to give service, to give assistance. Now, and sometimes people have trouble understanding this, but I'm going to show you how this makes really obvious sense. So just as we receive assistance from souls who reside in higher spheres than we are, we too are often called to do the same. And so sometimes some of us are asked to go to purgatories and to lower hell realms when there are souls who are reaching to achieve a higher construct or a higher thrust, to go there and to give them some type of assistance to reach higher as well.
What if you get stuck there? Is that possible?
Well, you never go unless you are directly instructed that this is what you are called to do. So you won't do this. You won't just say, oh, I'm going to do that because I want to. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You only do this because you are literally being instructed that this is something you have agreed to do before you came here, and that this is part of what you are to do because you're giving back for what you are receiving. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Because this is part of, creation continues to create, and we are always required to give back to creation what creation gives to us, and we all do this in different ways. And so what we definitely learn in these out-of-body experiences is just how important it is to remember that we will be required to give back. And this is one of the things that we learn about, we learn that we must do, and how important it is that we recognize this huge circle of life, and that there is no disconnect from the higher worlds to the middle worlds where we are and to the lower worlds, and that it is all connected. It's all connected, and that we all give service in one way, shape, or form. And some of us do it in one way and others do it in other ways. Some of us give service, like I was called to do this in some of the lower spheres. Others will be called here. Others will be called in higher spheres. It's just the way we are all called differently. And a lot of the work that I had to do was also with, lost souls and wandering spirits and ghosts, So
sure,
we'll all be called in different ways and also at different times in our lives as well, So it changes as we continue through our epics of our life,
Well, Marilynn, hang with us. We're going to come back at the top of the hour and take phone calls with you. Questions for Marilynn Hughes about out-of-body experiences, or if you've had one, check in with us and tell us what happened with you as well. Lots more to talk with her about. Her website, outofbodytravel.org, is linked up at coasttocoastam.com.